All right, we're going to talk about the rights granted by copyright and look at some examples, some real world examples, so you can kind of put some of this into context. I mean, most of it is pretty easy to understand, but there are some caveats, and it has been a challenge explaining copyright to some people who do not understand it. I have tried my best to explain it to the best of my ability. So your right to reproduce work, create copies of your book per se. So here's a couple of examples. All right. So in the instance of books, when a publisher prints copies of a book, they are exercising their reproduction rights. For instance, J.K. Rowling holds the copyright to the Harry Potter series. Any unauthorized reproduction of these books, such as printing copies without permission, would violate her copyright. For music, when a song is recorded and distributed digitally through platforms like Spotify or Apple Music, the copyright holder's reproduction rights are being exercised. If someone were to burn like a CD or take their own recording of a Taylor Swift album and sell them without permission, that would be an infringement of her reproduction rights. As far as the right to distribute work. So you have the authority to sell, lease, or otherwise transfer ownership of copies of the work. So, for example, film distribution. When a film studio releases a film, whether in theaters or on DVD or through a streaming service, it exercises its distribution rights. For instance, Disney controls the distribution of films like Frozen. Unauthorized distribution, such as selling pirated copies of the movie, infringes on Disney's distribution rights. That right there is a big one, the piracy industry, where people feel like they can just redistribute your work and you not get compensated for that work. That entire industry, and I feel like some people justify it as, oh, that person's making money. I'm just, I just don't want to pay for it. And, I'm saving a little bit here or there. It's not really stealing. It absolutely is stealing. It takes me hours and hours of work to slave away at a book, to have somebody take it and distribute it for free and read that book, and for me not to be compensated for it. That is absolute theft for me. I am not being compensated for the time that I took to write that book. So piracy is a huge issue and something, if you're writing, that you constantly need to pay attention to. Do searches. See if you find your book in places it's not supposed to be. And there are actions that you can take to have it removed. And we'll have to do a later video on something like that. Let's see, books. Publishers like Penguin Random House hold the distribution rights for the books they publish. Selling unauthorized copies or uploading a book to a website without permission violates the publisher's distribution rights. Same thing, the piracy. It isn't yours. You cannot sell and profit from it. If you do, then you are a thief. Plain and simple. There is no way around it. All right, you have the right to publicly perform the work. So, for example, music. When a song is played on a radio, performed at a concert, or streamed online, the copyright owner's public performance rights are being exercised. For example, when Beyoncé songs are played at a concert or on the radio, the performance rights are utilized and royalties are typically paid to the copyright holder. In theater, a company performing a play, such as Arthur Miller's The Crucible, must obtain a license from the copyright holder. The license grants them the right to perform the work publicly. I did a lot of community theater in my days, and every time that you would do a show, typically I like to do musicals, so because I have dancing experience and singing experience, but I know that whoever's going to perform it, They decide, what they're going to perform, and then they typically have to pay for a license to be able to perform that. And they will be provided with the scripts and all of the music that goes along with that performance. But you have to pay the license to be able to receive the information, the scripts, and the music. And then at the end, whenever you're all done, then typically they collect all of the scripts and the music from everybody who was in the show, because they do have to destroy that and make sure that it doesn't fall into somebody else's hands, that they can reproduce it and violate the copyright of whoever wrote the play or musical or whatnot. You have the right to publicly display your work. For example, art exhibitions. A museum displaying a painting, let's say, for example, Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night, must have permission from the copyright holder. If the work is still under copyright, I think that by this time, Starry Night is probably no longer under copyright. But if it's still under copyright, you do have to have permission to be able to publicly display the piece. If a contemporary artist's work is displayed without authorization, it will infringe on their display rights. So if you didn't approve for it to be put there, you could get in trouble for that. And I think that that's, like, let's say you have somebody who has one religious belief, let's say, I don't know, pick any religion other than Christianity, let's say, and they created, and they're very religious, and so they created this kind of, maybe it's a religious imagery piece of art, and then some church puts it up, then, if they didn't have permission to put it up, and it was still under copyright, then perhaps they would be in trouble. The original artist maybe didn't want it to go there because it violated maybe their beliefs and whatnot. And so they didn't approve for it to go in that location. And so they can get in trouble for it. Photographs. When a photographer's work is exhibited in a gallery, they control the public display of their image. Posting a copyrighted photograph online without permission would be a violation of the photographer's display rights. And the right to create derivative work. So, for example, let's talk about film adaptations. When a book like The Lord of the Rings is adapted into a film, the filmmakers do have to have permission from the copyright holder to create a derivative work. So, it's a derivative work because it's fixed in a different medium than its original novel. And typically, in order to transition from the page to the screen, things have to change. And so you do need permission from the copyright holder to use the source material for the movie before you can actually create the movie. In the instance of translation, so let's take a written novel in English and later translated to French. That would be also considered a derivative work. So translators must have permission from the original copyright holder to create and distribute translated versions. So that is kind of a detailed explanation with examples, real world examples that kind of take a look at all of these rights that are bestowed upon you under copyright law, to help you better understand what exactly you control and what to look for. Like I said, with the piracy, you do want to periodically go out online and do a search and make sure that your book is not for sale on sites or places that you did not authorize. So it's a constant battle. Somebody's always trying to take the fast road or try to cheat you. You always got to stay one step ahead of them.